Missouri is the Hufflepuff of the SEC. Good, I got your attention. You probably never thought you'd hear somebody talk about SEC football and Harry Potter in the same sentence, but that's why I do what I do. And trust me, this will all make sense in about 35 seconds. So in the Wizarding world, nobody truly respects Hufflepuffs. Everyone wants to be a Gryffindor or a Slytherin or a Ravenclaw, and Hufflepuff is kind of just thrown to the wayside. But they're hardworking, they're loyal, they care about the product they place in the Wizarding world, they're trustworthy. And that's how I feel about Missouri going into 2024. Everyone's talking about Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss. And here's Mizzou that is coming off an 11-2 finish. They return a ton of offensive production. They scour the transfer portal and added in proven names that are going to elevate the stats of the departed players. And they're building something special underneath Eli Drinkwitz. They can be a contender moving forward in the SEC. It's a new era of Mizzou football. It's a new era for Hufflepuffs. But we're continuing our X Factor series. What will be one thing that makes or breaks a program in 2024? And to me, this all comes down to how Corey Batoon replaces Blake Baker. Can he live up to the hype after being the defensive coordinator at South Alabama? So welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. Make sure that you hit the ring notification and subscribe down below. That way you don't miss a single episode. Make sure that also you subscribe to the podcast version of the show. Make sure also you are following us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. I'm Cole Thompson. If you want to follow me on socials, it's at Mr. Cole Thompson. And to keep up with the #1 source for all things SEC, visit SECUnfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by Rhoback. Use promo code SECU for 20% off all joggers, polos, hoodies, shorts, and much, much more. Promo code SECU at Rhoback.com. So, again, Hufflepuff, Mizzou, they make a lot of sense together. They fly under the radar. They're not considered one of the contenders. They're not considered a favorite. And that's my last Harry Potter reference for at least until the end of the video. But in my opinion, when you look at this offense, you know what to expect. Brady Cook's back here. Luther Burden's back here. You have a solid offensive line. You brought in Caden Green. You bring in Marcus Bryant. You have your center still back. You have a very balanced rushing attack with a Thunder and a Lightning in Nate Noel and a Marcus Carroll. They're complementary to each other. They are going to elevate the backfield and replace Cody Schrader's production. They have a good tight end. They have Mookie Cooper. They have a ton of offensive talent. And best of all, they have the architect in Kirby Moore, who's back for another round in Columbia. That's only a positive for this team. With Theo Wees there, with Luther Burden, with Brady Cook. I already mentioned all that. This, to me, comes down to Corey Batoon. Because Batoon last year did construct a top 25 defense in college football. It was South Alabama, but still, it was a top 25 defense. And the year before, underneath Kane Womack, it was the same thing. Womack had a big part in that defensive formality, but you got to realize that Batoon was the play caller. He was conducting and constricting in all of these elements that made this unit of the Jaguars really potent. And that's going to be the case for Missouri this year. You don't wonder what the offense can look like. The question is, how many times are they going to have to score if this defense can't hold its end of the bargain? I look at Brady Cook, thinking he could be a Heisman dark horse because if he's going to be throwing it around the yard like no one's business. I think Luther Burden's going to be the #1 wide receiver in college football this year. I think that Mookie Cooper's going to have a breakout year. I think the rushing attack is going to be great. But it doesn't matter if you have to continue to score because your defense can't hold its own. One thing that great programs have, one thing that conference championship programs have, one thing that national championship caliber programs have is stability on both sides of the football. They know that the defense can step up on any given Saturday when the offense isn't carrying its end of the bargain. And on the same token, the offense will step up if they have to carry their end because the defense can't hold up their side. Can the defense do that? Can you feel like Corey Batoon this year coming on over can be a great replacement for Blake Baker? Because Baker was a stud. Baker absolutely was an underrated coach that finally got his opportunity, and nobody can disagree that he didn't want to eventually get higher up. LSU, they paid him a lot of money to go fix that side of the defense, so they kind of have to do that this year. With Missouri, you feel like that even though you lost a lot of pieces, you still replaced a ton. You got better at cornerback in the transfer portal with a kid from Clemson. You added in linebacker play. You added in safety. You added in some defensive line depth. You feel like a very solid roster overall. But it all comes down to the execution. Schedule's manageable. You don't have to worry about really any teams outside of Alabama on the road and Texas A&M on the road. I mean, Oklahoma, you don't know what they're going to be this upcoming year. Maybe that's a trap game because it's the first time that these two are going to meet since really the Big 12 days. But even then, if your offense is as good as you think it is, you should be able to dismantle Brent Venables' defense. You don't really have to worry about Georgia. You don't have to worry about Tennessee. You don't have to worry about a lot. You have a very relaxed non-conference schedule. The pathway to the postseason is very potent for the Tigers. That's why a lot of people, I think, are saying, well, once they get into that game, once they get into the college football playoff, this is where things are going to go south fast. I don't think so. You get confidence, you start building an aura around yourself, you can take on the world. You don't need to have the best players. You need to have the most constrictively sound players. You need to have the players that aren't going to fumble at the wrong time. You have to have the right players who aren't going to mismanage play calling. You have to have the right players that are going to execute properly. They don't have to be all 5 stars for you to have a 5-star culture. Matt Campbell said that, and guess what happened? The Cyclones went to a Fiesta Bowl. That could be Missouri, but instead they're going to the college football playoff semifinals. We know that Batoon has a solid defense. We know that Batoon has been able to conduct solid defensive play. And we know that there are pieces in Columbia that are going to be they're going to be fundamentally sound that will only elevate this status. Yes, does it stink that you lose guys such as Ennis Rakestraw and Tyron Hopper? Absolutely. Do you feel like that you have some replacements in the building? Sure. Offensively, I think that Mizzou is going to be one of the best teams in college football. Not the SEC, college football. I think that when you look at what is going to go into this year, Kirby Moore is going to be a front runner for any job that he wants, probably in any conference besides the SEC. And even still, depending on who's available or what's available, he may get that shot. But Batoon last year was solid. South Alabama was solid. Just because the expectations down in the Sun Belt have changed for the Jaguars doesn't mean it's his fault. In fact, in large part, it's due to the fact that both you lose Womack and Batoon. So now they're starting fresh down there in the Sun Belt. If Batoon can get this defense at the same level as Blake Baker, maybe not even that. Maybe we just go top 40. Top 50, top 60. Is that good enough? Where maybe 2 or 3 games, the most important games, Alabama, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, those are moments where your defense is stepping up to take down Jalen Milroe, take down Connor Wegman, take down Jackson Arnold. Maybe those are the games that you really need. Everyone looks at Ole Miss and everyone looks at Alabama, everyone looks at Texas, everyone looks at Georgia, and they say they're the teams that are going to be in the playoff. And they're right. They should. But much like in the world of Harry Potter, there are 4 houses that can be 4 teams in the postseason. Maybe it's not Ole Miss. Maybe it's not Alabama. Maybe, just like Hufflepuffs, Missouri's flying under the radar. But they need to have the right wizard at the helm, kind of like they did in the Tri-Wizard Tournament with Cedric Diggory. That's where Corey Batoon steps in. He may not be the most prominent name in the conference, but he will be the biggest X factor that's either going to elevate Mizzou or hold the Tigers back in what seems to be a very prominent year and a focal year in the history of Farote football field. But let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think is the X factor for Missouri going into 2024? Make sure that also you like the video, hit subscribe, because we're talking college football every single day leading up to week 1. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. And to keep up with the #1 source leading up to SEC Media Days, throughout SEC Media Days, and much, much more, make sure you visit SECunfiltered.com. I'm Cole Thompson. Until next time, folks, later.